Picture this, a beautiful, high-security golf estate in South Africa. Inside, a wealthy family's idyllic life is about to be shattered in the most brutal way you can imagine. It's a case with only one conscious witness, a horrific crime scene, and one central nagging question. Was he a lucky survivor, or was he a cold-blooded killer? To even begin to figure that out, we have to start with the chilling emergency call that kicks this whole thing off.
So, this is the call. The voice you're hearing belongs to 20-year-old Henry von Breda, and what's so jarring, what immediately made investigators' ears perk up, was his tone. He sounds so calm, almost detached, especially when you realize he's describing a scene of absolute carnage, where his parents and his brother are dead or dying around him.
Now, to really get why this crime was such a shock, you gotta understand who the Van Bredas were. We're talking about a well-to-do, seemingly tight-knit family. You have Martin and Teresa, the parents, and their 3 kids, Rudy, Henry, and the youngest, Marley. By all accounts, they were a happy, successful family, really living the good life.
After spending a bunch of years over in Australia, the family decided to move back home to South Africa, and they settled in the De Zalze Golf Estate. Now, what makes this whole story even crazier is the location. This wasn't just any old neighborhood. I mean, this place was a fortress. We're talking electric fences, CCTV everywhere, 24-hour patrols. The family believed they were in a place that was, quote, safe, safe, safe. The idea that something like this could happen there, it was just unthinkable.
The scene inside was a nightmare. Martin, Teresa, and their oldest son, Rudy, were all killed in the attack. 16-year-old Marley somehow miraculously survived, but with horrific head injuries. And then there was Henry, the middle child. He walked away with just a few superficial cuts. So out of 5 family members attacked, only 2 made it out alive.
So what on earth happened? Well, with Marley unable to remember anything, the only story police had to go on came from Henri. And he painted this picture of a terrifying, random, and brutal home invasion.
Okay, so according to Henri, here's how it all went down. He said he was in the bathroom when he saw a masked intruder come into the bedroom he shared with his brother and just start attacking Rudy with an axe. His dad, Martin, runs in to try and help, and he gets struck down. Then his mom and his sister are attacked, and Andre claims that he then bravely fought this attacker, wrestled the axe away from him, got stabbed with a knife, and then the guy just fled.
But here's where things get really, really strange. It's what Henry did next that immediately sent up huge red flags for the investigators. After the supposed life-or-death struggle, his first phone call wasn't to the police. It wasn't to an ambulance. No, it was to his teenage girlfriend, who didn't even answer. He then claims he passed out for almost 3 hours before finally calling for help. That delay, it just didn't make any sense.
So as the police start digging in and processing the crime scene, the physical evidence, well, it starts telling a very, very different story from the one Henri was telling.
You know, the whole case for the prosecution really boiled down to this one crucial point. Could they prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, that Henri's elaborate tale of a laughing, axe-wielding intruder was a complete and total fabrication?
All right, let's break it down piece by piece. First up, the supposed break-in. Henry claimed an intruder somehow got past this state-of-the-art security, but investigators found absolutely zero evidence of any breach, not a single sign of forced entry. And for a robbery, it was pretty weird. Valuables like his mom's handbag were just left out in plain sight. Nothing was stolen.
Then you've got the injuries. His family had these catastrophic, fatal wounds. But Henri, the guy who claims he fought the same attacker, he had a few minor cuts. A forensic pathologist testified that his wounds were uniform, superficial, and looked exactly like typical self-inflicted wounds. He didn't have a single defensive bruise you'd expect from a life-and-death struggle. As one investigator said, he would have had to have been a very, very lucky man.
But maybe the most damning evidence of all, the real nail in the coffin, was the blood spatter. Henri said he stood frozen in fear in the bathroom doorway while the attack started, but in a room with that much violence, there was no blood spray, no spatter in that area at all. And yet, police found tiny blood stains from his mother, his father, and his brother on his shorts and his socks. That put him right at the scene of the attacks, not hiding in the bathroom.
The prosecutor, Susan Galloway, she called this the cherry on the cake because the blood spatter evidence made Henry's version of events physically impossible. You can't have your family's blood on your clothes, but not on the walls and the door frame all around you. The story and the science, they just couldn't both be true. So while all this forensic evidence was painting one very dark picture, the people who actually knew Henri, especially those who met him after the murders, saw something completely different. His girlfriend, Daniela, who he met after the attack, she described him as gentle, as selfless. She stood right by him, believing his story, even suggesting that maybe a seizure could explain his memory gaps and his weird behavior. Even his aunt just found it impossible to believe that the nephew she knew could do something like this. She promised to support him no matter what.
I mean, listen to this quote from his girlfriend. It really just hammers home the disconnect. She saw a guy who would rather be in pain himself than let anyone else suffer. And that character is just impossible to square with someone who would murder their family with an axe.
And yet, you immediately pivot to the prosecution's assessment, and it is chillingly different. For them, the only kind of person who could inflict this kind of intimate, brutal violence on their own family was a psychopath. Just two completely opposite views of the exact same man.
So, after a very long trial where every single piece of evidence was picked apart and scrutinized, the court finally delivered its judgment.
The number says it all. The judge found Henri van Breda guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 3 life sentences, 1 for the murder of his father, 1 for his mother, and 1 for his brother, plus extra time for trying to murder his sister, Marlee.
But the one question that still hangs over this whole case is why? Why would he do it? The prosecution's best guess was that an argument, maybe over some long-standing family issue, just spiraled completely out of control. They believe Henry attacked his brother Rudy first, and when his dad walked in on it, he realized he had to eliminate the rest of his family to cover his tracks.
And the most tragic part of all of this is that the one person who could tell us for sure what happened that night can't. Marlee survived, but the severe trauma left her with retrograde amnesia. She has absolutely no memory of the attack, and she'll probably never be able to tell the world what she saw. And that's really where this story leaves us. We're left with this ultimate, haunting question. The court decided that Henri van Breda was the killer, and the evidence shows us how he did it. But the motive, the actual reason why a son would pick up an axe and slaughter his own family, that remains a complete mystery, leaving this chilling, empty void where a family used to be.